That's not.
That's an incorrect characterization of his testimony.
He testified that she wouldn't be able to push her head back to do the breathing for a breaststroke. You heard him testify to that, didn't you?
Actually, that's not right.
As to she's mischaracterizing his testimony.
You heard him testify that she wouldn't be able to turn her head to the side to do the breathing for a crawl.
That's what I heard him testify to.
And someone who has those types of physical problems isn't going to take up swimming as a major part of her life.
I don't know if she takes it up as a major part of her life. All I can tell you is that I made the suggestion and she said she wanted to do it.
And somebody with those physical
Some
problems
local
doesn't
cable
want-
operators
doesn't
will be
want to
cutting
dive
away
into
for a
pool
commercial
at night,
message
do
at
they?
this time.
That's pretty
CNN
dangerous.
live coverage of the William Kennedy Smith trial continues.
I didn't say anybody was going to dive into a pool at night. All I said was, do you want to go swimming? And she said yes. And the rest of the evening is just the way
This season, ESPN delivers
personally or whatever. All I can say is that when I was and I had the impression that she fixed me up.
You don't appear to be very embarrassed today, Mr. Smith.
Well, all I can tell you is I am embarrassed.
Now, several people in the time period after this took place. Dr. Proskauer saw her and testified as to her physical injuries and her emotional condition, that she was weeping, that she was withdrawn, that she was regressed. Mr. Smith, are you trying to tell the jury that all these symptoms resulted as a consequence of consensual sex between two adults?
I don't.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for an opinion.
Well, that's what you're trying to tell the jury, that there was nothing but consensual sex here. Isn't that your story?
It's not my story, that's the truth.
Okay. Well, isn't that what you're telling the jury? It's consensual.
I'm telling you that we had sex and that it was her decision and my decision and we did it and that's the way it happened.
Yet afterwards, she went to a hospital for medical attention, and a physician
I
testified that she was
cannot
weeping.
Tell you.
Objection is argumentative, Your Honor.
Her emotional condition after this supposedly consensual sex was withdrawn, upset, distraught. Are you trying to tell the jury that these are natural reactions of consensual sex?
Objection is argumentative.
Dr. Proskauer testified that consensual sex is not considered a traumatic event. You'd agree with that testimony, wouldn't you?
I object. Calls for his opinion of the witness.
That she was faking these symptoms of being distraught?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for an opinion.
Well, if the testimony is that she was extremely distraught and upset in the morning hours and in the afternoon of March 30th, 1991, wouldn't you agree that a little more happened here than consensual sex?
Objection, Your Honor. Same objections, the same line of questions.
Well, how do you explain, Mr. Smith, the fact that she was extremely distraught, crying, that she went to a rape crisis line, that she sought medical attention?
Now, do we object to an approach regarding this?
Right now they're approaching the bench because Maura Lash keeps asking William. Greta Van Susteren in Washington, D.C., our trial attorney watching this with us. What do you think so far? Is Maura Lash scoring any points or casting any doubt in the jury's mind with her cross-examination?
Well, Maura Lash is making every effort to try to shake this witness, but this witness seems unshakable. This witness is doing exceptionally well. The last line of
Is still undergoing cross-examination by Maura Lash.
I think after 6 or 7 objections being sustained, I've made my point clear.
What about Detective Regola after the report to the sheriff's office on the March 30th, 1991? Were you aware that she was She also saw her in a distraught mood.
Objection, Your Honor, assumes facts not evidence, and I move that the question be stricken and the jury instructed to disregard.
Sustained. Members of the jury, questions by lawyers are not evidence. And I need to confer, I think, with these attorneys outside of your presence for a minute or two. Why don't you step into the jury room? No talking about the case among yourselves. It'll only be a minute or two, but it's a good chance to give you a stretch.
Right now, Judge Mary Lupo is excusing the jurors for a moment so she can talk to the attorneys and hear what's going on.
Do you want to argue on the appropriateness of this line of questioning for that last question?
Judge Lupa, I'm somewhat at a loss here. I cannot understand in a case where the allegation is rape. The victim has stated she was severely emotional traumatized by this. We have several individuals who saw her there. Now, Mr. Smith is giving a different version of her state of mind, of her appearance, of her demeanor, of her actions. Obviously, it's appropriate in cross-examination to bring out other people. I'm going to bring these people in rebuttal to his testimony. That's the line of questioning. He's opened the door to this in his testimony, that she was unconcerned and all his other elaborate story of what happened. I am entitled to cross-examine him on the basis of his information and on the accuracy of his information. This is what the evidence of this case is. The police officers who saw her, the doctor who saw her, and all the other people who saw her. That is a significant part of the trauma of the crime that is evidenced by her appearance to these people.
Mr. Black, you want to argue your position?
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Regolo has not testified. Where the prosecutor stated in her question that Detective Regolo saw this person in a particular condition is totally improper. It is suggesting evidence to the jury that's not in the record, assuming facts not in evidence. And I think it's improper. Even if she had testified, it'd be improper. He can testify as to what he says he saw and observed and heard. She can ask him any questions that she wants about that, but she can't ask him to say what other witnesses said, and that's improper.
Anything further from the state?
Yes, Judge, I'm going to ask him, and it's not facts, not in evidence. I'm asking him if other people saw her. Would that be a difference from his story? I mean, it's bringing out impeachment of his testimony.
Well, I rule question by question. And the last question was, what about Detective Regolo? Were you aware that she also saw her in distraught mood? Now, that is clearly an improper question.
Could the court explain to me why?
Did you read Mr. Black's basis for his objection?
Give me a second, please. The basis for the objection is on the plea. I'm sorry.
Let me repeat myself, okay? The question that Mrs. Last... The question last proposed this witness by Mrs. Lash goes somewhat as follows. What about Detective Regolo? Were you aware that she also saw her in a distraught mood? Do you agree with Mr. Black that Detective Regolo has not testified?
She will be testifying on rebuttal.
Do you agree with Mr. Lash that she has not Mr. Black that she has not testified?
No, she has not testified. This is
Then how in heaven's name is that a proper question?
Because it's going to be, it's a prior inconsistency with what his testimony is. His testimony.
And what some other witness may have said is totally irrelevant to this person's testimony. You have to bring in that other witness, and we'll hear from the detective, no doubt, in rebuttal.
Well, what we'll do now is take a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back.
an irresponsible thing to do. I had a talk with Patrick, and we were on the way out to play tennis the next day, and I sort of said to him that very unstable, or and he said, well, and he sort of smiled and looked at me. I mean, and he said, well, did you use protection? And I said, no. Thank God I pulled out, because can you imagine what it'd be like to have a kid with,
well, you know that
with
pulling
that
out,
woman?
well, you know pulling out isn't a method of birth control.
It's a very poor method of birth control. What I did was very, very foolish and irresponsible.
Child. In fact, she stated she would be a high-risk pregnancy if she had another child.
Yes, what she did was a very foolish and irresponsible thing.
Well, it wasn't just foolish and irresponsible for her. It could have very dire consequences to her health, couldn't it, to get pregnant?
It was very foolish and irresponsible.
Yet she
Both
wasn't
of us.
using any birth control on March 30th, 1991.
When I asked her if she was using birth control, she said, we better be careful, and my interpretation was that she was not using birth control.
Okay, it's your testimony that this woman who rubbed against you in a bar, who asked to drive you home, who made all these suggestive comments to you, and that the the animal magnetism or the element just heated up right away. Your testimony is that that same woman wasn't even using any form of birth control. Don't you think that's a little inconsistent, Dr. Smith?
It was very foolish and irresponsible of her not to have birth control and of me not to have birth control, and I've regretted it a lot.
You didn't.
But I mean, that's as much as I can say.
You didn't have time for any birth control with what happened on the lawn at the Kennedy estate on March 30th, 1991, did you?
I did not have birth control.
Hasn't anybody in your family warned you about not getting people pregnant? I mean, you come from a very wealthy family, don't you?
I don't recall specifically conversations I've had about not getting people pregnant. I think it's something that everybody should know, and as I said, I should have known it, and I was the wrong thing to do.
You've never had any discussions with anyone in your family about, you know, don't get women pregnant, we don't want to support children, and, you know, those types of general conversations. You've never had them?
Well, there have been sometimes I've heard remarks, or there have been exchanges about that subject.
Okay. Well, that's something everybody's parents talk to them about, isn't it?
I mean, people, yes, I did have a conversation with my father when I was about 13 years old about how people get pregnant.
There were other young men in the house. What about Patrick Kennedy? Did he have any condoms you could borrow?
I don't know. I did not go in and ask Patrick Kennedy for a condom. I didn't ask him.
You're studying to be a doctor. You're concerned about getting someone pregnant and you have sex without any form of birth control?
It was a foolish and irresponsible thing to do, and I was embarrassed about it afterwards.
And obviously pregnant as a result of what happened on March 29th, 1991.
No, she did not.
And the fact that she did not become pregnant did not have any effect whatsoever on her pursuit of this case in the criminal justice system, did it?
Your Honor. Calls for his opinion.
Sustained.
I mean, obviously you know that she got her period sometime after this took place, and she continued to go forward and pursue this case.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for his conclusion.
Sustained.
Wasn't your testimony that she was just so concerned about getting pregnant and that's why she was reporting this as a rape?
No, that was not my testimony.
That was part of it, wasn't it, that you weren't that careful?
I testified as to what happened, and that's all I can testify to.
Do you know the meaning of the word no, Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
You'd know on March 30th, 1991?
No, she did not.
How did she consent to sex with you? What did she do that led you to believe she consented?
Well, I would have to say that it was a lot of different things. I can tell you that she put me inside of her when we were on the lawn. I can tell you that I was not quite ready, and that she helped me inside of her. Before that, I can tell you what happened over the course of the evening. There was no point at which we actually said, you know, exchanged explicit verbal, had made an explicit verbal contract. I mean, if that's what you're looking for.
Okay, now she's not only rubbed against you and asked you if she could take you home, now she's actually the person who puts your penis in her vagina.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, what are you saying, that she raped you, Mr. Smith?
Absolutely not. No, what I'm saying is that when I was going into the house, she and I had sex on the lawn.
And all this happened in just an hour. And she became so anxious to have sex with you within an hour after meeting you.
I would say that we were at O-Bar for somewhere, I think probably between around 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. And I think we came back to the house, and then we were at the house for, I'd say we were in the car and then the parking lot, maybe 5 minutes, and we walked over to the pool area. We were there for 15 or 20 minutes. We walked down to the beach, and we were there for half an hour, 40 minutes, and then came back up on the lawn and were there for another half an hour or so, and then we were back in the house, and she left, and then she came back, and then we had a conversation, and then she left again. I'd say the whole thing, you know, there was maybe another half an hour to an hour. I really don't know the time frame.
Okay. And it's your testimony here before, as she walked out of the lawn at the Kennedy estate?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Well, she'd never been there before, had she?
I don't know.
Well, after she said that, I've been here before, did you follow up on that and ask any other questions?
I remember asking her, turning and looking at her as she was looking at the house and sort of saying, when or really? And I don't remember exactly the next exchange. I remember we walked across the lawn, and I remember that we resumed the conversation by the pool, and she said, let me think how to explain this. And then she started talking about being ashamed of your family and something terrible, and then I didn't follow that. And that was my, that's how I remember the conversation.
Well, you state that she said, I've been here before, and then the next conversation was about her family. Did you ever follow up and ask her about when she had been there before?
Well, I thought she was trying to explain or communicate with me in some way. I thought she was trying to make a point, and she was trying to explain either involvement with my family or some observation that she had, and it missed the mark. I didn't understand what she was talking about, and that's what I said. And then she started calling me Michael. She said, I wouldn't expect you to, Michael. And she called me Michael a second time, and that's when I said, my name's not Michael. And I wasn't sure if she was still trying to make this point, or she was disoriented, or had me confused, or had me confused with a cousin, or what. But I thought it was sort of an easy thing to clear up. And she said, let me see some ID. I showed her my ID, and that's the way the exchange went.
Well, when she made her statement, "I've been here before," you never specifically got straightened out when or where or under what circumstances?
No, I did not.
In fact, she's never been there before.
I don't know.
Well, that's what she testified to here in court.
Then I would say that, you know, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for her. I mean, all I can say is that that's what she said to me that night.
Well, you stated that she rubbed against you and
She
that
said a lot of things in court.
she was anxious to take you back to the estate and that this sexual relationship was heating up. This doesn't sound like a very sexual conversation, Mr. Smith. Let me explain about my family.
There were several points at which we talked. There were actually very little conversation on the whole. And I do remember bits and pieces of it because it struck me. And that was one piece that I do remember. And right after that, we went down to the beach and we kissed on the lawn. If you want, I can talk to you more about the kissing and that aspect of it, but there were points in between where we did have some conversation.
Okay. Well, first you went to the pool area, and that's located on the south side of the lawn, isn't it? The pool area is on the south side of the lawn?
Yes, it's on the south side of the lawn.
Okay. And on March 30th, 1991, Senator Kennedy and Patrick Kennedy were staying in bedrooms at the south area of the lawn, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And at no time, you heard their testimony, did Senator Kennedy or Patrick Kennedy say that they saw her on the lawn on March 30th, 1991?
That's right. They did say that. There's no reason that they would have seen them if they were in their rooms.
Well, Senator Kennedy was walking around according to Patrick's testimony.
That's right. But I never saw him.
Did you say anything or talked about her grandfather, who was head of a tire company?
I said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. So after she made those statements, that's when she started calling you Michael?
Right. She said, my general recollection of the flow of the conversation was she said that my grandfather was head of, and I don't remember the name of the tire company, and something about, have you ever been ashamed of your family, and have you ever, you would do something to get away, and da-da-da-da. And then she said, do you know what I'm talking about, in a kind of a fevered pitch, and I said, I have no idea. And then she said, I wouldn't expect you to, Michael. And I said, my name's not Michael.
Okay. So some very odd comments were made, correct?
They struck me afterwards. Up until then, it was in the course of other things, and I thought she was disoriented, or I thought she had me confused, or she was confused. I wasn't quite clear.
And even after you thought this woman was disoriented or confused, you're telling the jury that you went on to have sex with her?
Yes, I did.
Why do you think she called you Michael?
I don't know. I do not know.
Now, you're taking out your wallet and showing her your identification. That doesn't sound like the type of thing that precedes sex.
Well, I agree with you. It was kind of odd, but I just changed the subject and asked if she wanted to go swimming, and she said, let's go down to the ocean, and that's what we did.
Okay, so it was her, again, it was her leading you to the ocean. You didn't direct her there.
Well, I suggested the pool, which was heated, and it was nice, and I thought we'd go in the pool.
But she was the one now you're saying that wanted to go down to the ocean.
She made the suggestion that we go down to the ocean,
Okay.
yes.
And yet, before you even went down there, you state that you observed that she was disoriented and confused.
I had that exchange with her by the pool, and I wasn't quite clear what it meant, and I didn't really clear it up. I basically thought it was an easy thing to clear up, and I wasn't sure what she was talking about, and it wasn't until she made some other comments later that I thought it was a big deal. But at the time, she said, I wouldn't expect you to, Michael, and I think she called me Michael a second time.
Okay, now she didn't say, let's go down to the beach to have sex, did she?
No, she did not.
In fact, Mr. Smith,
Some
there were
local
several
cable
empty
operators will be
bedrooms in that
cutting
house,
away
weren't
for a
there?
commercial message at this time.
No,
CNN
my
live
impression
coverage
at
of the
the time
William
was
Kennedy
the
Smith
house was
trial
full.
continues.
Well, you had this diagram here to the second floor. Empty. She has a whole house up in Jupiter you could have gone to.
She did not invite me to her house.
But you could have gone to a hotel if you wanted to have sex with her, couldn't you? In a private place?
I could have gone to a hotel. We wound up, it was a very nice night, and we had sex where we had sex. I suppose we could have had sex in a lot of other places, but that's not the way it happened.
Okay, now your story is that on March 30th, 1991, when you walked down to the beach...
It's not my story. It's the truth.
Well, your testimony is that when you walked down to the beach, you got a towel out.
I walked over to the side of the house, and there was a railing on the side of the house, and there was a towel there, and I got the towel.
And that at that point, you took her panties off?
We took her panties off. I lifted herself up, and I helped her get her panties off.
When you say she lifted herself up, you're saying that she lifted up her dress and that you pulled down her underwear?
Her dress was up, and to get her panties down, she had to move the weight off of her hips, and I had my hand inside of her panties, and I moved them down her leg, and she pulled her leg up and took her panties off.
So you went down on the beach, you laid out the towel, and then you proceeded to go on to what you just described.
Yeah, there were some other, we were kissing and necking, and she undid my pants, and at one point I had my pants off, and she had her panties off.
Did you ask about birth control at that time?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And she indicated to you that she wanted to have sex without any form of birth control?
No, what she said was, we better be careful.
Years old, and she's had a child. She knows about pregnancy. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't know. I would assume that. I don't know the brief exchanges that I've had with her.
What about AIDS? Were you aware of AIDS on March 30th, 1991?
Yes, I was.
Okay, now, after you say that her underwear was removed, what happened there on the beach?
After her underwear was removed, I had my hands between her legs and was preparing to, was getting close to entering her, and she said, and I asked her if she had any birth control, and she said, we better be careful. And then she sort of sat up, and I kind of went over to the side and said, oh, and she rolled over onto me and put her hand on me and proceeded to massage me.
Okay. Well, now let's go back to the point where her underwear is supposedly removed, okay? And you say that she's standing up when her underwear was removed. Where did her underwear go?
I don't know.
And what position was she in after she removed her underwear?
Initially, she was on her back.
So So she took off her underwear, and then she decides to lay down on the towel in the sand of the
No.
beach.
She took off her underwear and my pants while we were on the towel. When we lay down, we were fully clothed.
So she took off your pants.
She helped me take off my pants. She undid the snap at the top.
And she massaged you.
We massaged each other at different points. I'm just telling you different points. I put my hand in her panties and massaged her, and she was very wet, and I don't know what you want me to say.
Did you insert your penis in her vagina at that time?
No, I didn't.
So you're stating that you did not have your penis in her vagina on the beach.
Yes, I am.
And when you say you ejaculated, where did you ejaculate?
I ejaculated onto myself.
At any time on March 30th, 1991, was your penis...
Yes, it was.
So you ejaculate on the beach. Okay. And what happened at that point?
After a few minutes, I sat up and lying next to me, and I asked her if she wanted to go swimming. I said, I'm going to go in, and she said, you go ahead.
Okay. So then you went into the water.
I got up and took off my shirt, and I went into the water.
So
And I walked out a ways, and it took me a while because there's a lot of rocks and things, and I walked out a ways, and then I went swimming.
So any semen that you had on yourself would have been washed off in the water, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
Well, you went into the water, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you didn't have any clothes on at that time?
No, I did not.
Well, when did you take your shirt off?
After I stood up.
So you have this conversation. We have massaging you, then you ejaculate, and then you say, well, I'm going into the water and take a swim now?
Yes.
That sounds not too romantic, Mr. Smith.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, you two are supposedly so attracted to each other, and it had gotten so sexual so fast. And then this takes place, and you say, well, I'm going in the water now?
Yes, that's what happened.
So, well, you just started swimming around there on the beach?
I walked out a ways, and then I swam.
Swimming.
I don't know. When I got back up to the lawn, I asked her, I noticed when I was out that she was not on the beach. I got back to the lawn, I asked her why she left the beach, and she said she had to go to the bathroom, and I asked her why she didn't come in the ocean, and she said that it was too cold.
Okay. Yeah, just a few minutes ago, you said that she stated that she wanted to go swimming in the ocean.
All I can tell you is that she said, let's go down to the ocean, and we got down there, and she said, she left.
Okay. So it's your
After we
testimony
had
then that you
met.
had this sexual encounter on the beach, and then you went into the ocean.
No, I don't.
Well, how long did you swim around in the ocean?
Well, I don't know. It was some period of time. I walked out and then swam back and forth a couple of times. I looked and I swam back in, so I don't know.
Okay.
10 minutes.
So that there could be no semen in her vagina from what happened on the beach, right?
There was no semen in her vagina from the beach.
And you'd ejaculated on the beach.
Yes, I had.
So after you swim around for a while, then you walk out onto the sand?
Yes, I went up and I got my towel, and I walked up the stairs, and I saw her standing by the house.
Okay. And while you were swimming, I guess you're just saying that she left and went up to the house.
Yes.
Okay. Well, was there any communication between the two of you? I mean, you say, I'm going in and go swimming now.
No, she said, you go ahead, and I got out, and I was swimming around for 15 minutes or so, or 10 minutes, I don't remember. And then I looked in at the beach, and she wasn't there, and I came back in, and I got my towel, and I went to look to see where she'd gone.
Well, did you get dressed?
No, I did not.
So you left your clothes on the beach, and you wrapped this towel around you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So you left a little pile of clothes on the beach.
Yes, my clothes were on the beach.
And you walked up to the lawn, girded in a little towel.
It wasn't a little towel, but I had a towel around me.
And up onto the lawn.
She was standing over by the house.
Where was she standing?
She was standing about in front of a large picture window, about 50 feet out from the house in the lawn. I mean, less than 20 feet, 20 to 50 feet, something like that.
So you just casually walked up the steps to the lawn at that point?
Yes, I did.
Where were you expecting to find her?
I didn't know.
Well, what did you do when you got up on the lawn?
Walked over to and I said to her, why didn't you come in the ocean?
Well, hadn't she
And
told
she
you
said,
it was too cold?
No, she didn't. What she said to me was, I had to go to the bathroom. And I said, well, why didn't you go in the ocean? And she said, it was too cold.
Well, did she have her dress on at that time?
Yes, she did.
So the only portion of her clothing that she took off on the beach would be those underwear?
That's right.
And so then you have this discussion on the lawn about the fact that she didn't go swimming.
Yes.
This doesn't sound like two people in the throes of passion, Mr. Smith.
You're not going to object. It's not a question.
Well,
Wouldn't you agree this is very difficult to believe?
absolutely. Well, all I can do is tell you what happened that night. That's the way the evening progressed. Whatever it sounds like to you, all I can say is that's what happened.
Okay, so after you made contact with her on the lawn, what happened at that location?
Well, I go in and go to bed. And she said to me, can I come in the house?
Well, you just left your clothes down on the beach. What were you going to do about them?
Well, I was going to go get my clothes and go to bed.
So you say to her on the lawn that you're going to bed, and she says, can I come in with you?
What I said was, it's late, and I'm going to go to bed.
So at this point, now you say...
I was tired. I mean, I'd been out late, and I guess I wanted her to leave, and that's what I said. And maybe that was not romantic, but that's what happened.
Okay, so now you're testifying that she took her underwear off again at the lawn.
What happened was she started to play with my towel, and she grabbed my towel and came off, and we started to kiss, and I put the towel down on the ground, and we lay on the towel for a minute, and we were out on the lawn giggling, and she took her panties off, and she pulled me on top of her, and I tried to enter her, and she said, be careful. And I wasn't erect, and she was helping me, and I was trying to move with her and get excited.
Well, you'd already ejaculated on the towel in the beach, right?
Yes, I had.
Okay, well, did you ejaculate a second time now on the lawn?
I did not think that I had ejaculated. I got excited and I thought I was going to ejaculate, and I told her to stop moving because we were moving together, and I called her Kathy, and she told me to get the hell off of her.
So when...
I thought when I pulled out, and I pulled out right away, that I hadn't ejaculated.
Okay, now, she not only wanted to have sex with you now down on the beach, she's pursuing you up on the lawn and tugging your towel off. And wants to have sex a second time on the lawn?
She wanted to have sex on the lawn. I had already had sex, but we had sex on the lawn.
Well, did you insert your penis in her vagina on the lawn?
Yes, I did.
And did you ejaculate?
Obviously, I ejaculated. I did not think that I ejaculated. I thought that I pulled out.
Well, let's go back now. You've already ejaculated on the beach, okay?
Yes, that's right.
You've gone into the water, cold water in the ocean, and you're swimming.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And now you're saying that you can come up on the lawn and have another ejaculation within a matter of, minutes?
Well, as I said, we lay on the beach. I went into the water. I came back on the lawn, and I was moving with her on the lawn. All of that would take, I'd say, a half an hour. And as I pulled out, I had thought that I had not ejaculated. And that was what I was telling her. I was careful because, it was stupid of me, and I should have not done it, but I really, honestly thought that I had not ejaculated.
Well, did you ejaculate or didn't you, Mr. Smith?
Obviously, I ejaculated.
Well, obviously semen was found in her vagina, correct?
That's correct.
What I'm asking you is, what's your testimony? Are you saying that after ejaculating on the beach, you can now go up on the lawn and ejaculate a second time?
What I'm saying, I guess, is that I did not climax a second time. I did have my penis inside of her, and there was semen found inside of her. But I honestly thought that I had pulled out, and I did not have an orgasm, if that's helpful.
Well, I'm asking you what the facts are. Okay, you ejaculate on the beach. You go into the water and it's all washed off. Okay. Then you go up and walk on the lawn. And you're saying now within a matter of moments, you're going to get another erection and have sex and ejaculate again?
Objection that mischaracterizes the testimony.
Overruled.
All I can tell you is what happened.
Okay.
I was down on the beach, we were on the lawn, and she put her hands on me, and I had an orgasm. I went in the water, I swam around, I came out, I entered her again, I did not have an orgasm. And that is the way that it happened.
Okay, so you're saying you didn't ejaculate on the lawn then?
I'm saying I did not have an orgasm. Obviously I ejaculated. I thought that I did not have an orgasm. I thought I had pulled out.
Well, let's go over this a little bit further now. Number one, when you say you're having an orgasm, are you ejaculating at the same time that you're having an orgasm?
Are you asking me now? This is a medical thing. I'm not saying, I'm saying that I did not have an orgasm, and all I can say is that. Whether or not, I can tell you that there was semen in her vagina. I can tell you I did not have an orgasm on the lawn, and and I can tell you that it's possible to have semen in your, without, pulling out, but that's as much as I can tell you.
Okay. Now, Mr. Smith, you didn't tell us that she had semen in her vagina. The DNA analysis told us that she had semen in her vagina, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm asking you what you're trying to tell us about what happened. You leave the beach after ejaculating. You come up here. When you say that you had an orgasm, on the lawn, are you saying that you ejaculated?
I did not say I had an orgasm on the lawn. What I said was I got very excited. I was close to climax, and I told her to stop moving because she was moving and I'd stopped and I didn't want to climax. And she, at that point, I called her Kathy, and she changed dramatically. And I honestly thought that when I talked to my cousin the next day about it, I said, you know, thank God I pulled out because I honestly thought that I had not climaxed. And I told her as we were walking out the steps, don't worry about it. I tried to be careful.
Okay. Well, she didn't have to worry about it walking up the steps at all because you said you ejaculated all over yourself.
No. What I was referring to was after we met in the kitchen, we walked down the back steps, and I said to her at that point, I tried to be careful.
Okay. Well, what are you, some kind of sex machine here? You can get all these...
Object to this question.
Sustained.
You think this is a real believable story, Mr. Smith?
Objection is argumentative.
Sustained.
This woman that you've only met approximately an hour before leaving Obar.
It's the truth, Miss Lash, and that's all I can do is tell you the truth.
And obviously you called her Kath for a reason.
Is that a question?
Yes, it's a question. Why'd you call her Kath?
I don't know. It's lipped. I've dated people named Kathy.
And then again, after this takes place, now you decide to go swimming in the pool, right?
Yes, I got up off the lawn. I laid on the lawn for a while, and then I got up and jumped in the pool and swam a couple laps.
Okay. So you have sex on the beach, and then you go swimming in the ocean, and then you have sex on the lawn, and you go swimming in the pool. That's your testimony?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Somewhere on the Kennedy estate.
Yes, she left. I went back, I got my towel, which was on the lawn. I went down to the beach, I got dressed. I was walking up the beach, and I heard my cousin Patrick's voice. And I walked by, and I could see there were two forms on the beach. And I walked up the steps, I went back to the house, and I saw...
When you took her to a little room off the kitchen area there. It's been called the maid's room or other type of nomenclature for that room. That's where you took it, isn't it?
Absolutely not.
She definitely testified that she saw a stairway in the room in which she talked with you.
I think in one of her statements she did say that, but that was not where we went. We went to a den area, which is just to the right of the kitchen. As you come out of the kitchen into the dining room, there's a little den there, and that was where we went, into the little den. I think my cousin Patrick was with me at the time.
Well, he says he was with you at the time. Is that right?
He was with me at the time.
Okay. And you know you can always count on your family, don't you?
If you're implying that my family is lying to protect me, you're dead wrong.
Okay. Well, you know that it's a close-knit family and you can rely on them.
I'm just going to repeat what I said. I'm telling the truth, and Patrick is telling the absolute 100% honest truth.
Now, you never reported a theft of any property from the Kennedy estate, did you, Mr. Smith?
No, I did not.
And the smart remove that urn because you've never been able to figure out what to do about it, have you?
Objections, argument.
Sustained. Mrs. Lash, this may be a good point to break unless... Is this a good point?
Yes, this is fine.
Okay. Members of the jury, will you step down?
While we're in this break in the courtroom, we'll take a time for these commercial messages from your local cable operator.
What time would you estimate that you arrived back at the Kennedy estate and were in the kitchen?
I don't know.
Well, how long did you remain in the parking lot area when you arrived back at the estate after returning from Obar? What amount of time?
I'd say we were in the parking lot for about 2 to 5 minutes. 2 minutes.
And how long would you estimate that you stayed in the kitchen area and you opened up that beer inside the house?
We didn't open up a beer inside the house. We walked through the kitchen and walked out to the pool. We stopped at the bathroom.
How long would you estimate that you were in the house before you went out onto the lawn?
2 minutes.
And how long would you estimate that you had this conversation by the pool?
10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. 5 to 15 minutes. It's 10 minutes, I'd say, actually, maximum.
And how long did it take you to walk from the pool down to the beach?
Walked over, got the towel. I'd say we got to the beach in, I don't know, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that.
How long would you estimate that the scene took place on the beach that you previously described?
You mean up until I got out of the water?
How long
what
did it
point?
take you to spread your towel on the beach and for the activity to take place which you previously described?
Up until I went into the water, I'd say we were probably on the beach for about somewhere around 20 minutes.
How?
15 to, 25 minutes, something like that.
15 to 25 minutes?
I'm just giving you broad times, and, I'm giving you estimates, so I'm putting 20 minutes about the middle of the range.
And how long were you in the water swimming?
I'd say I was in the water for at least 10 minutes, maybe more.
What would your best estimate be?
I'd say around that. I mean, I could give you, or again, a range in there, and I'd give you the middle of it.
How long did it take you to walk from the beach up to the lawn?
Not long, a minute, 2 minutes.
Okay, how long did it take for the conversation that you had?
I'd say we were on the lawn for about a half an hour.
And how long would you say that you went swimming in the pool?
I swam about 2 laps in the pool.
How long would you estimate that that took?
To swim 2 laps, I'd say a minute to 2 minutes.
How long did it take you to get from the swimming pool into the house?
Well, after I got dressed, it came back up maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
In order to get dressed, did you have to go back down to the beach area and get your clothing?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so how long did it take you to walk from the swimming pool down to the beach?
I said went and got dressed and came back. It was about 5 minutes.
And how long were you in the house after you came back from the beach?
We left the house immediately.
Well, after you walked from the house, you walked from the beach onto the lawn, and you entered the house, didn't you?
I entered the house. I went straight to the kitchen. she said she wanted to go, and we started out to the parking lot.
So how many minutes would you estimate that that took?
I'd say that the whole thing took about 5 minutes.
And when you were in the parking lot, how long would you estimate that you were in the parking lot with her?
I'd say about, it's very hard to say, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes.
And was it at that point that she left and returned?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so how many minutes did that take?
Well, Patrick said it was about 2 minutes, but I would say, you know, longer, let's say somewhere around there, 3 minutes. You know, it's somewhere in there. We walked from the bottom of the parking lot back up to the house, went into the pantry, and had a glass of water, and we're talking there when she drove back.
And how many minutes would you say that your conversation in the den took place?
I'd say we were in the den for a reasonably short period of time. The exchange went maybe somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes.
And how soon after the conversation in the den?
She left right away.
In the conversation that you say took place in the den, she told you, "You raped me"?
What she said to me was, Michael raped me. And what I said to her was, "Who's Michael?" And she said, "You showed me an ID that said Michael on it."
But you hadn't showed her any ID that said Michael, had you?
No, I had not.
She also told you that she called the police, didn't she?
At one point, when she was initially leaving the house, she said that she had called the police.
Where did she call the police from?
I don't know. I didn't really, wasn't sure. What if she had? I thought she was trying to make a scene. I thought that perhaps she was manipulating or punishing me for being insensitive. Mm-hmm. She apologized shortly afterwards, and so I did not think that she had called the police. I thought she was just being hysterical.
The phone that's depicted in the photographs that are in evidence, is that the same phone that was there on March 30th, 1991?
I don't know.
Well, did you make any phone calls from that phone on the weekend that you were there at the Kennedy estate?
Yes, I did. I mean, I'm assuming because it's in evidence that yes. I mean, I wouldn't assume that the answer would be yes. But I mean, if you're asking me, do I know the phone or can I identify the phone? I mean, I know it was a Bell phone, and yes, I'm sure that's the phone.
Well, the photographs that were taken by the police were taken on April 12th, 1991, which is almost 2 weeks after this took place. Is that the same phone that was there on the evening of March 30th, 1991?
I don't know. I don't know if...
From the looking at the photographs, you don't have any idea whether this was the phone that you used the weekend of March 30th, 1991?
Looking at the photograph, it looks like the phone that I used. The phones have been changed in the house, and I don't know when they were changed. We have a new phone system put in.
Okay, so it's your testimony that after snapping, as you say, and stating to you, "Michael raped me," that she then changed and apologized and was very nice?
Yes, she did.
And within a matter of a couple minutes, right?
Yeah, it was a very short period of time. She got into her car, she backed up, started driving out. I was standing in the parking lot. Her brake lights came on. She stopped at the gate, about halfway down the parking lot. I walked down to where her car was. She rolled down her window. I asked her if she was all right. She apologized for getting upset. She said she had a terrific night, and I was a terrific guy, and I don't remember exactly what the rest of the conversation was, but I do know that there was another car that pulled up behind us at that point.
So she told you you were a terrific guy?
Yeah, and I told her she was great, and it was an exchange of pleasantries, and you know, we were
You
being
told her she was-
complimentary to each other.
You told her she was great after she told you that she was going to call the police, or she called the police?
Well, I did tell her that, and I thought that I didn't understand what was going on with her, but I was just really being polite, and I wanted to, I mean, we'd had a sort of an abrupt change, and I thought we'd gotten a different tone, and I thought she'd calmed down, and she was upset, and I wanted her to leave, and I was being polite.
And you told her she was great after she'd said, Michael raped me to you?
As I said, I was being polite.
And she just went back into a different personality out in the parking lot. Is that your testimony?
She seemed upset. She seemed preoccupied. And she seemed like she'd gotten over it.
And is it your testimony that you don't know the phone number in the house
Now or that evening?
on that evening?
Yes.
Well, did she ask you for your phone number?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And you state that she asked you for your phone number after she'd stated to you, Michael raped me, and after she stated to you that she called the police?
Yes, she did. She said, on the first occasion, she said, Michael, and she said, you raped me. On the second occasion, when she came back, she said, Michael raped me. She had a long stream of consciousness where she was talking about the evening, and she got upset. She started to shake and cry, and she said, and you don't want me, and you don't even want me, and she said, and Michael raped me.
Okay. That didn't come out on your direct examination, did it? The part about you don't want me.
Yes, well, I don't know if it did or it didn't. I'm just telling you what happened.
And you talked to your cousin, Patrick, after that?
I talked to Patrick when I got back to the room. I don't remember what the exchange was. And I talked to him the next day. I made reference to it once.
Okay. Did you talk to him about how you had gone to bed earlier and then had gone out again?
We may have had that conversation. Yeah, I think we might have talked about the fact that we shouldn't have gone out, or that my night was, I was pretty shook up.
Sorry about that.
My night was, I was shook up. I was
Okay.
a little scared.
And it was your testimony on direct examination that Patrick Kennedy's eyes bugged out of his head when he saw...
That's right.
And when he was testifying, he said he didn't even know who it was.
Well, he said, what he said was he did not recognize the person. He assumed that it was the person that I'd been with.
And then when, later on in your direct examination, you stated that after his, quote, eyes bugged out of his head, he looked at you and smiled and you exchanged glances. That's quite a mood swing for him, too, isn't it?
He looked at me. I turned around. I said, do you want to talk? She said, she didn't say a thing. She nodded her head. And the three of us started walking out into the dining room. And as we were passing through, Patrick looked, we made eye contact. And he gave me a look, and this is very strange. It was sort of, I think at one point he said, Fatal Attraction.
Well,
And
what
that
you-
was the kind of look he gave me, and I kind of went into the, and I kind of said goodnight, Patrick, and we went into talk.
Mr. Smith, Fatal Attraction is a movie script, isn't it?
That was the, yes, it is.
And that's a fictional story, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And it's the story about two people who have an affair for a long period of time, and woman doesn't want to break off the relationship.
I object as irrelevant, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I just brought the that script up to try to communicate to you what the mood was, what was going through my mind at the time.
Well,
It was a strange exchange, and we had a kind of a strange, he gave me a strange look, and like, this is kind of, we looked at each other, and he just smiled, and that was the mood that was going on here. And I walked in, I smiled at him, and I walked in to talk to her.
so his eyes bugged out of his head, and you said something about it's really crazy, and the next minute you look at each other and smile.
That's
your
correct.
testimony?
He smiled at me, yes.
And you thought that Fatal Attraction was a funny connotation on March 30th, 1991?
Funny is not the right word. I would say both of us found ourselves in an awkward and strange situation, and there was a glance of recognition that we were both in a strange situation together.
So you exchanged smiles at that time?
He looked at me and gave me a little bit of a look like good luck, and I said good night, and then we went into the den.
Okay, and at the time that you say this, both concerned, did you go to get anybody else in the house?
No, I did not.
What about the caretaker, Dennis Spear? Did you call him and request help?
I was embarrassed. I brought somebody back to the house who was acting very strange, and I'd done it on that weekend, and I was scared and embarrassed that I had, and I did not tell anyone else about it.
Okay. You didn't seem scared and embarrassed just a minute ago when you testified that you and Patrick Kennedy exchanged smiles.
I can tell you that I was embarrassed, and I can tell you that I got a glance of recognition from Patrick, and it was comforting to me.
Well, you didn't call the police at that time, did you?
No, I did not.
And you didn't call anybody at that time, did you?
No, I did not.
And it's your testimony that you, Michael, that you got frustrated and angry?
What was frustrating and angry to me was that she had made an accusation about me, that she said that I had raped her and that I had shown her an ID that said Michael on it. And I interpreted that to mean that she was saying that she put the two and two together. What she said to me was, Michael raped me, and then I said, who's Michael? And she said, you showed me an ID that said Michael on it. And that's a frustrating experience because I know what my driver's license says on it, and it seems to me to be pretty obvious. And when you are in a situation where there's something very, very obvious to you and you can't convince another person of it, it's a frustrating experience.
Well, what you're saying, Mr. Smith, is that you thought that this person had these severe mental problems when they were talking to you?
I did not say
I'd
that.
like to object, asking for an opinion.
Overruled.
Well, aren't you trying to tell the jury that this woman had these terrible mental problems and was doing all these bizarre things on March 30th, 1991?
I'm trying to tell the jury what happened to me that night. I don't know why. I have no idea. All I can tell you is what happened in the course of events over the evening.
Well, what reason could there be for her acting that way, Mr. Smith?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for an opinion.
Sustained.
And there was never indication that she couldn't read, was there?
No, I never got any indication that she couldn't read.
All right, so that after this takes place, and she's told you that you raped her and Michael raped her and called you Michael and told you she called the police, then you decide to go to bed and sleep on it, right?
After Ann Mercer came by, she didn't seem to be particularly concerned, and she apologized that she'd caused me trouble. Earlier, she had gotten into an argument with Teddy at the bar, and I told her not to worry about it. I assumed that she did, and it was late, and I was glad that somebody was taking care of her, and she said, "We'll see you on the beach tomorrow," and I was relieved, and I went to bed.
Well, how did Ann Mercer get there?
I don't know.
Obviously, somebody had to call her to come, didn't they?
Yes, probably.
Hmm.
I really, the answer to that is I don't know. I mean,
Well,
either that or they had arrangements, or I don't know the answer to that question.
it'd be a little bit coincidental just to show up at your house at the exact time that this is happening, wouldn't it?
Objection is argumentative.
Sustained.
I mean, she had to call Ann Mercer to come to that house, didn't she?
As I said, I don't know what... All I know is that I came in, I saw Ann Mercer. Ann Mercer said, "What's going on?" And I said to her, "I don't know, I haven't got a clue." And she said, "Well, let's go look for him." And I was very happy to see her.
So Ann Mercer comes to the house, and she comes in and she asks you, and she demands...
Really demand. She just asked me in a quizzical way if I'd seen her shoes.
And she asks you, "What did you do to my friend?"
She never said, "What did you do to my friend?" What she said was, "What's going on?"
And she was there to pick up...
All she said to me was that she was there to get some shoes.
Well, where was Chuck Desiderio?
I don't know.
You never saw Chuck Desiderio?
No, I did not.
You never saw him go into the Kennedy estate and take an urn that night?
No, I did not.
You were never aware that an urn was taken on March 30th, 1991?
I didn't become aware that an urn had been taken until sometime later.
And you were never aware that a legal pad or a picture frame was taken?
No, I was not.
You had no idea about that?
Not that night. I had no idea.
When Ann Mercer came, she asked you, "What did you do to my friend?" and demanded to find out where her shoes were.
She did not say, "What did you do to my friend?" What she said was, "What's going on?" And she said, and I said, and I said, "Let's go look for them."
Well, why would Ann Mercer...
To see Ann Mercer was my basic reaction at that point. I thought that she came in the house. She asked about the shoes. I said I don't know where she left them. I thought perhaps she left them by the pool because I wasn't quite clear on it. We took a walk around. We had a slight conversation. Don't worry about it. We'll meet you on the beach tomorrow. And that was the extent of that was it.
Well, you indicated earlier in your testimony that when you got to the Kennedy estate, just a moment. Aren't you intimating that that's when she took off her pantyhose?
She did say, "Give me just a moment." And she was in the car for a period of time when I was in the parking lot.
Well, did she have her
At
pantyhose?
no point during that time did I actually see her remove her pantyhose. And when Ann Mercer came to the house, I really didn't know at what point she'd removed her shoes and her pantyhose.
Well, now, let's go back down to the beach when you're lying on that towel. You can't tell us whether she had her pantyhose on at that point?
I know that she did not have her pantyhose on the beach.
So you know she didn't have them on when you went into the house. Is that what you're saying?
My initial impression when this question first arose was that she had taken her pantyhose off by the pool. That's where I had taken my shoes and socks off, and that's where I went to look. But at this point, it's obvious to me that where she took her pantyhose off was at the car.
Well, what makes it so obvious now when it wasn't obvious?
Some
earlier?
local cable operators will be cutting away for a
Well,
commercial
that's-
message at this time. CNN
Ann
live
Mercer says
coverage of the William
pantyhose
Kennedy Smith trial
in the car.
continues.
The fact that Ann Mercer and I looked for the pantyhose and never found the pantyhose leads. I certainly would have reported it stolen if I'd noticed it.
Well, you never reported it as stolen, did you?
The first I heard that the vase had been stolen, I was told that the police had it in their custody.
The question I asked you...
In fact, I didn't even know the vase was from the house. I was shown a photograph of the vase on Sunday, about 10 minutes before I left for the airport. And what I was told at that time by Bill Barry was that it was a piece of stolen property. And I asked him if the vase came from the house, and what he responded to me was he didn't know. All the police had told him was that it was a piece of stolen property, and that the officer was going to call back and he would talk to him later. And that's the first I heard of it. I found out later that night that the vase had in fact been stolen from the house, and that in fact somebody had stolen it.
Now, you state that when you saw that photograph, Polaroid, you had absolutely no idea that that came from the Kennedy estate?
I had absolutely no idea that that came from the house.
Well, Mr. Smith, wasn't that dining room filled with china the exact same pattern, and wasn't there another urn just like it right on the sideboard in the dining room on March 30th, 1991?
When Bill Barry showed me the photograph, I did not recognize the vase in the photograph. I asked him if it was from the house, and he said to me, I don't know. All I know is that the police came by and said, this is a picture of stolen property. There's an investigation going on, and the fellow who was by is supposed to call back or at 3 o'clock or at some future point.
What the police said was, we've recovered some property from the estate. Isn't that what they said, Mr. Smith?
I don't know that. I don't know what the police said.
And it's your testimony that you didn't have any idea whatsoever when you saw that photograph that that was from the dining room in the Kennedy estate?
No, I did not.
Well, there's an exact duplicate of that urn in those photographs that they took on April 12th, 1991.
Yes, there is another urn, matching urn, in the dining room.
And you had to walk through that dining room numerous times during the day, didn't you?
As I said, there is a matching urn, and the urn was in the dining room, and perhaps I should have recognized it. I don't spend a lot of time in that house. I'm down there maybe one weekend a year in general, usually around Easter, and so I really didn't recognize the vase.
And that's over a number of years, though, isn't it, Mr. Smith? It's not just this year.
Yes, but as I said, I did not recognize the vase. Maybe I should have, but I did not recognize the vase.
And if memento of the Kennedy estate, she wouldn't have left that vase at Ann Mercer's house, would she?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for conclusion.
Sustained.
She didn't even take the legal pad or the picture frame from Ann Mercer's house.
I don't
Objection.
know.
Calls for conclusion is not a question.
Sustained.
Well, you never reported that as stolen, did you?
What are you referring to?
The urn, the picture frame, or the legal pad?
As I said, the first I heard about the urn, I heard that the police had the urn. That was the first time I heard about the urn at all. I did not recognize it. I was on my way to the airport. Stephen Barry, Patrick Kennedy, and I were out running on the beach, and we've been running down to the jetty. And we were coming back down the beach on Sunday afternoon, and we had a foot race. And Stephen Barry won, and Patrick came in second, and I came up the stairs, and I saw a number of people outside. This was shortly before I was supposed to leave Palm Beach. I came up the stairs, and I was going inside. Phil Barry showed me the photograph. He said, this is a picture of police property. do you recognize it? And I said, I have no idea. I don't know do you know anything about it? I said, I don't know anything about it. And I said, I got to go catch a flight. And he said, okay. And I went and I packed my bag. I came down, and I was eating on the run. I did not sit down at the table. I just came, and he said, well, I'll give you a ride to the airport. I think he was under the impression I'd already left. And my mother and I drove to the airport. And he said the guy's supposed to come back later and tell me what's going on. And that was the only thing I heard about it. That was the first time I heard about it.
You were definitely at the Kennedy estate at lunchtime on March 31st, 1991.
As I've just stated, I left about, my flight was at 3, so I left the house probably, and I don't know the exact time, but it was probably around 2:30.
Sergeant Robinson came to the Kennedy estate about 1:30 p.m. and he asked to speak with Senator Kennedy, and he had a Polaroid photograph of a vase, the same vase he recovered, a legal pad, and the picture frame. And he told Mr. Berry that he recovered some property from the estate.
Yes,
He never told Mr. Berry that he had any stolen property. He asked to speak to Senator Kennedy. And did Mr. Berry tell you anything else?
Objection is argumentative, it's not a question in any event.
Sustained. Did Mr. Berry tell you anything else? You said you had a discussion with him.
All I can tell you is he showed me the photograph. He said the police had been by the house. Did I know anything about the vase? Did I recognize the vase? I said I did not. And that was the end of that conversation.
Well, you stated that you had a conversation with Mr. Berry about this Polaroid photograph.
I just repeated the conversation. He said the fellow had been by the house. Maybe because I was the man of the house. At that point, Bill showed me the photograph. I looked at it. I said I didn't know anything about it. He said, well, the guy will be back. And I said, well, I'd be happy to find out what's going on, and I'll talk to you. I mean, basically, that was the conversation. I proceeded directly from there to the airport, and he really did not have any information at the time I talked to him.
Why would you be the man of the house at that time, Mr. Smith?
Well, I suppose because my mother had the house for that period of time, and I don't know if he showed the photograph to anyone else. He showed it to me on the lawn, and he basically didn't tell me anything about it.
Well, specifically, Sergeant Robinson asked to speak to Senator Kennedy.
I object to this, Your Honor. First of all, it's not a question, and all she's doing is stating somebody else's statement. It's an improper question.
Sustained. Well, you heard Sergeant Robinson testify when he came into court earlier, and his testimony was that he asked to see Senator Kennedy. Does that indicate to you that he thought he was in charge?
Objection, Your Honor. It's calling for a conclusion.
Sustained. And he indicated that he wanted to talk to Senator Kennedy about recovering the property from the estate.
If that's what he...
I'm going to object. This is not a question. This is a statement that calls for a conclusion.
Sustained. Didn't you hear Sergeant Robinson's testimony when he came into court?
Objection. Argumentative.
Sustained. Do you recall what Sergeant Robinson said?
Objection. It's argumentative.
Overruled. Do you recall, Mr. Smith, what Sergeant Robinson said when he testified?
My recollection was that Sergeant Robinson came to the house with a photograph about some, which he said he was conducting a police investigation of, and he showed it, and he gave it to Bill Barry and said he wanted to speak with the senator.
Okay. And it's your testimony that Mr. Barry had no idea that anything had happened on the evening of March 30th, 1991.
Objection. Calls for a conclusion.
Sustained. Well, your testimony is that you never told him anything about what happened on March 30th, 1991.
That is absolutely true. I never told Bill Barry about any of the events that evening. I was embarrassed about it, and I never talked to him about it.
Well, if Mr. Barry didn't know anything about what had happened, why is it that he lied to Sergeant Robinson?
I object, and I request to approach the bench.
Sustained. Members of the jury, step into the jury room. It can only be a moment or two. Stretch your legs. Don't talk about the case, please.
right, now, while there's an objection and the lawyers are going to be approaching the bench, let's talk to Abby Lloyd.
Closing arguments of attorneys and questions elicited by, or questions of attorneys do not constitute evidence. Apparently, there is a dispute between the attorneys regarding the propriety of a certain type of question, and I resolve those legal disputes. It is improper to ask one witness to pass on the credibility of another witness or on the believability of another person. And I am instructing the state that they will not ask questions along those lines again, and you are to disregard the content of the last question and any other question asked, because questions do not constitute evidence. You may resume.
Mr. Smith, you left for Washington, D.C. on a plane at 3 o'clock, correct?
Yes, I did.
In fact, at that time, on Sunday, March 31st, 1991, when Sergeant Robinson was at the house, Bridie Sullivan was there, your mother, Jean Smith, was there, Mr. and Mrs. Berry were there, Stephen Berry was there, and Carol DeSalvatore was there. And there was another maid there, Nellie McGrail. Were there any other people there at that time?
I believe, I don't know if you've covered everyone. You have Patrick Barry, Stephen Carroll, Jean Saba, who was a maid, Bridie, my mother, Bill, Mary Lou, myself. Patrick and Stephen and I were on the beach most of the day, but everybody was around the house, yes.
Okay. And after you got off the plane in Washington, did you make any phone calls?
Yes, I did.
In fact, almost immediately after getting off the plane, you made a phone call from Dulles Airport to the Kennedy estate, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And later in the evening,
I called down because I was missing a set of keys. Before I left the house, I went through my pants pockets and I was missing my keys. And Bridie Sullivan, who was a woman who's been working for us for a number of years, and I went to look for the keys. We looked around the house, we went down to the beach, and when I couldn't find them, I had to catch my flight, I left. When I got to Dulles, I had parked my car at Dulles Airport and I had no keys. And I was going to unpack my bag because I hadn't had a chance to go through all my clothes to look for my keys before, I was going to unpack it in the airport, but I decided that before I did that, I would call down to Palm Beach and see if Bridie had found the keys. So I called from Palm Beach, and Bridie said she hadn't found the keys. And I dumped all my clothes out, and I looked through them, and I couldn't find the keys there either. So my keys were missing, and I took a cab from Dulles Airport back to my house.
okay. And you lived at that time in Georgetown in a townhouse on Dent Place?
I was renting an apartment behind a townhouse.
Okay. Now, while you were in Palm Beach, you drove only rental cars, didn't you?
Yeah, there were some rental cars at the house.
And the last time you would have used any keys from your car would have been in Washington, D.C. before you got on that plane, wouldn't it?
I drove my car
To the airport.
to the airport and then got on the plane.
Okay. So the last time you really needed your keys was in Washington, D.C., correct?
That's correct.
So then you called down to the Kennedy estate later at 6:21 p.m., didn't you?
That evening?
That evening.
I don't know the exact time. I did call back later, yes.
And you talked for 16 minutes at 6:21 p.m. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
And who did you talk to at 6:21 p.m.? Still talking about those keys?
No, I called back. I guess that I must have gotten back to my house at that point, and I broke into my house. And I did call back later, and I had a conversation with Bill Barry about the picture, and he said that what he said to me was it's more serious.
I'm going to object, Ms. Pearson.
Sustained.
So at 6:21 p.m., whom did you speak with at the Kennedy estate?
I believe at 6:21 I spoke with Bill Barry.
Okay. Only to Bill Barry?
Well, I'm not positive. I might have spoken with Bridie again about the keys. I might have spoken with other people, but I think that was about it.
Okay, and then you called again at 7:15 p.m., didn't you?
Probably.
Okay, and you talked at that point for 28 minutes.
Yes.
Who were you talking to at 7:15 p.m.?
I talked to Patrick Kennedy briefly, and I talked to Bill Barry again.
What did you have to say that took a 28-minute phone call at 7:15 on the evening of March 31st?
Well, Bill Barry explained to me that he'd had a subsequent conversation with the...
I'm going to object as to hearsay.
Sustained.
What did you have to say?
I asked about whether or not I should get a lawyer.
And you talked for a total of 28 minutes?
Yeah, I talked to Patrick Kennedy, and I talked to Bill, and then somebody went to get Teddy, I think, at that time, and then I spoke with Bill, and that was the conversation. I mean, that was the group of people I talked to.
And you called the Kennedy estate the following morning at 9:44 a.m., didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And the only person left at the estate at that time was William Barry.
Yes, I did. I had a follow-up conversation the next day with him.
And you even called him back 5 minutes later at 9:50 a.m. at the Kennedy estate.
Yes, I did. All those arrangements were part of getting a lawyer.
And then you called him back at 11:02 a.m.
I suppose I might have. I had a lot of conversations that next day. He told me that there were some allegations against me, and I got myself a lawyer that day, and the next day the lawyer went to find out what was going on.
Mr. Smith, when you arrived at the Kennedy estate after leaving O-Bar, didn't you see Senator Kennedy, Patrick Kennedy, and Michelle Casone were already there?
Could you repeat the question, please?
When you arrived at the Kennedy estate on the morning of March 30th, 1991, didn't you find that Senator Kennedy, Michelle Casone, and Patrick Kennedy were already there?
I never saw them at the estate. Except I saw a car pull up behind me while I was in the parking lot, and I saw Patrick when I walked from the parking lot back to the house.
You never saw Senator Kennedy and Patrick Kennedy and Michelle Casone on the veranda at the seawall as you walked from the house down to the beach on March 30th, 1991?
No, I did not.
You had decided that you were going to have sex, and it really didn't matter what she wanted at that point, did it?
Slash, that's absolutely not true. I mean, I've gone over this with you a couple times, but all I can do is tell you what happened that night.
Particularly strong individual, was she?
I don't know.
She had some physical problems that would make it difficult for her to fight you. Isn't that true?
I can tell you she didn't fight me. I don't know about her physical ailments.
It's not difficult for a man of your size to take down a woman on the lawn, is it?
That's all I can tell you.
Isn't it true, Mr. Smith, that the ocean waves at the Kennedy estate and the close proximity to the ocean makes it difficult to hear sounds?
No, that's not true.
Do you think that someone standing out on the beach could even hear somebody standing up on the veranda?
I think it's more likely that somebody in the veranda could hear someone down on the beach, but that's just the way sound travels at that house. I don't know how it works the other way around because I haven't really... I'm more familiar with being at the house and hearing sounds around the beach.
Well, you've testified that you had several at the Kennedy estate, and in fact, no one indicates that they heard any of these conversations, do they?
No, I haven't heard anyone say that they overheard our conversations.
Away from you and ran into the house. You didn't know where she was, did you?
Miss did not get away from me. She got up after we made love and stormed off. I stayed on the lawn for a little while. You're right. After that, I did not know where she was. That's my testimony. That's the truth.
But you ran back down to the beach to get your clothes, didn't you?
After she left, I got up and I went and swam in the pool a couple of laps, and then I went back down to the beach and got my clothes.
And that's when Patrick Kennedy saw you on the beach when you went down to get your clothes.
I saw Patrick, or I saw two forms on the beach when I was walking up, and I thought I heard Patrick's voice.
And that was after you picked up your clothes off the beach.
I was dressed when I came up from the beach.
And you didn't know where she had gone, so you ran out to her car to see if she was in her car, didn't you?
Well, actually, I went into the house, I went into the kitchen area, and I was going to see if her car was there, and I saw her.
Didn't you figure that that would be the most likely place to find her would be in the parking lot area?
Well, I knew that I wanted to see if she'd left, and I knew that I could find out if she was still around by going and seeing if her car was there. And that's where that's what I was going to do, and that's where I ran into her.
And didn't you pick up her pantyhose and her shoes and put them in the car?
No, I did not.
Well, you didn't want anything in that house that belonged to her, did you?
No, I did not. But that doesn't mean I picked up her pantyhose and put them in the car. I never, as I stated, I did not know where her pantyhose were. I never saw her take her pantyhose off. I had no idea where they were.
You looked in the car and you didn't find her, and you went back to the house to look for her.
You're confusing me. What happened was, I got up off the lawn, got dressed, went back into the house, and I saw her there.
And you took her into the maid's room off the kitchen when you got back into the house after you found her in the pantry.
No, I did not.
And you talked to your cousin Patrick about this, didn't you?
I stated I didn't take her into the maid's room, and I will tell you that I did not talk to Patrick about taking her into the maid's room because I didn't take her into the maid's room. Patrick and she came back to the house after she'd driven off. Patrick and I were standing in the pantry, and that's where we saw her, and the three of us went in and sat down in the den.
Well, you did indicate that you talked to Patrick the day after about some of the aspects of what happened, didn't you?
I spoke to Patrick on the way up from the parking lot, and the next day I sort of mentioned to him that I was embarrassed about the evening, and he asked me if I'd used protection, and I said that I hadn't.
Didn't you indicate to him that you'd had a confrontation with this woman in a room off the kitchen?
Patrick and I walked out from the kitchen area together. I went in. I don't remember how much of what happened after that. I talked to Patrick about that night. I know it wasn't a lot, other than to indicate that I was embarrassed and upset by what had happened.
And you couldn't have been talking to Patrick Kennedy about going to bed early because you were at Lulu's at 2 o'clock, weren't you?
Well, the conversation I had with Patrick was about how, as I recall, was how we wished we had called it an early night.
Has just wrapped up her cross-examination. While we were gone, there were long gaps of silence. She tried to go over a couple of areas she'd gone over previously. The judge said she couldn't do that, so now Roy Black is on redirect.
No, I did not.
Just happened that way?
Yes, it did.
You were asked some questions about when you left. Let me have these. These to work as a physician.
Abby Lowell, while we've got this brief break, Maura Lash wrapped it up. How'd she do?
She struck out, Charles. I mean, she wasn't able to shake William Kennedy Smith's story, partially because she had nothing to use, but I don't think anybody will think that she dented his story at this point.
So, you think Roy Black's in pretty good shape now?
Yeah, I do. I think he has to be careful. Not to open up the door, but yes, I think he's in great shape.
This is a receipt for my ticket. To and from West Palm Beach.
Is that the actual receipts that were attached to your plane tickets?
Yes, it is.
Now, please, I'd move the exhibit into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
Now, you mentioned that when you got to Washington, you made a phone call back to Palm Beach.
Yes, I did.
By the way, do you carry with you a telephone book?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And when you called back down there, who did you talk to about your keys?
I spoke to Bridie Sullivan.
Who is Bridie Sullivan?
Bridie Sullivan is a woman who has worked for my family for a very long time, I think 28 years.
Is she close to the family?
Yes, she is. She lives with the family and helped raise my brother and I and my sisters.
When you couldn't get your car keys, what did you do with your car?
I left it at the airport.
How long did you actually leave your car at the airport?
I was working at the time at Georgetown, so I left it there. The first time I had a chance to get some keys made and go and pick it up was at the end of my rotation at Georgetown, so it was there for a pretty long period of time.
Let me show you what I've marked as Appendix Exhibit 92. Could you tell me what that is?
It's a receipt from Dulles Airport parking lot, which was the 17th of April.
What does that receipt refer to?
This is when I picked up my car. That's the receipt for it.
And how long did your car remain in the lot before you picked it up?
I was out there till the 17th of April.
Is that the actual receipt that you received when you paid for it?
Yes, it is.
And how much did you pay for, how much was the parking for that period of time?
It was $101.
Mayor, please, we'd move that exhibit into evidence.
Objection irrelevant.
Motion granted.
Now, Will, the first time you found out that there was any investigation involving sexual battery was when you were in Washington, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you told us about the conversation that occurred in the den or the study. Is that when the conversation became heated? Or how would you characterize the tone of that?
It got heated. Progressively more and more upset as she started talking, and she was talking very quickly in sort of stream of consciousness, and her voice was getting louder, and she got very, very upset. And then I got upset when she told me that I'd showed her an ID that said Michael on it, because my ID did not say Michael on it. And so there was an exchange, and then she got very upset and left.
All right, now, was this conversation inside the house or outside?
Inside the house.
In which room?
In the den, right off the dining room area.
Were the doors open or closed to the den?
The doors were closed.
Was there ever any yelling outside?
No, there was not.
Are there lights around the grounds of the home?
Yes, there are.
Were the lights on that night?
No, the lights were off.
Did you, at that time, have any security at the house? By security, I mean guards or security personnel.
Absolutely not.
Do you have it today?
Yes, we've had some problems in the last couple of months, and we had a guy break into the house, as you know, and we had some other problems, so we have security now, yes.
But you did not on March 30th, did you?
No, did not.
Now, how often would you go to the home here in Palm Beach?
I would go to the home once a year, maximum. Some years, not at all. I've been going since I was young.
Are there a lot of pictures in the house?
Yeah, there are a lot of pictures in the house. It's a big house, and there's a lot of bric-a-brac and things on tables.
What kind of pictures, who are the pictures of in the house?
They're family pictures, things from the house. This summer we had actually just before this trial, we had a fellow who came to the house. They'd broken in over the fall, I believe, with a lot of the pictures. And nobody had actually noticed that they were missing. He'd done it as a college prank and felt badly about it, and had come back and returned the pictures.
Is it that unusual for your family to have people either take things or have cranks in doing things to the family?
No, it's not. It's happened a lot.
Did it just happen recently about a man and a gun in this city?
Yeah, the police came by the house a couple of nights ago. I didn't talk to him. I got a note that there was a fellow who had been picked up with a concealed weapon, who was said he had killed 2 CIA agents and was looking to talk to Teddy. And the police dropped the note off, and they said they were going to come back later with a photograph, and I believe they came back later.
Are there a lot of phones in the house?
Yes, there are. There are phones in a lot of different rooms.
Whose decision, you were asked questions about coming to Palm Beach. Ultimately, whose decision was it to come to Palm Beach?
It was my decision to come to Palm Beach.
You testified about, your uncle coming in and talking
Yes, I wanted to be with my family, and it was my decision. I think that's...
Okay. You mentioned that on the evening of March 29th or the early morning of March 30th, your uncle came in and asked you to go out for a beer with him.
Yes.
Whose decision was it to go out?
It was my decision to go out.
When you came back to the house, whose decision was it to have sex with her?
It was our decision.
Do you accept the responsibility for your decisions?
I certainly do.
Did you?
I did not.
When you had this conversation at the pool, her calling you Michael and you showing her your ID, why didn't you just get rid of her after that?
Well, at the time, it did not seem, I didn't realize it was a big deal. I just thought that she was maybe a little kooky, and I didn't realize that it was a big deal, and I thought maybe she might be confused, or a lot of things went through my head. I thought maybe she had me confused with someone else, and I didn't think it was a big deal.
Did you and her kiss after that?
I thought it was an easy thing to clear up. Yes, we did. We kissed by the pool.
You mentioned the name Kathy. Did you have a long time girlfriend named Kathy?
Yes, I did.
What's her name?
Her name's Kathy Aim.
And when did you break up with her in relationship to this incident in March?
February or January, around the beginning of the year.
You were asked about some of these bedrooms upstairs. Does Bridie Sullivan live with the family?
Yes, she does.
And she's here in Palm Beach. Where does she live?
She lives at the house.
Does she use a bedroom?
Yes, she does. She uses a bedroom.
Are there other staff people that live in the house?
Generally, when we're down here, Nellie McGrail lives in the house. There's another woman who's living there now who's helping to clean the house.
You testified here about... I'm sorry.
Dennis Spear has a cottage over the garage.
You testified... Now, did you find out about her baby that night, or did you find out about it subsequent to that?
She never told me that she had a baby, never mentioned that she had a baby that night.
Did you learn about that during the course of our investigation in this case?
Yes, I did.
You were asked about whether or not the disc jockey and the all-bar was able to identify you or not, and whether or not it was you. Prior to March 30th, or prior to this, your name getting splashed all over the newspapers and your photograph in the newspapers, were you a well-known person?
No, I was not.
I mean, did people come up to you in bars and talk to you because you were famous?
No, they did not.
And you're not famous, or you weren't famous like your uncle, were you?
No, I was not.
But soon thereafter, your picture was in every newspaper in the country, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Now, you were asked some questions about talking to the press outside the courthouse.
Yes.
Do you know whether or not an arrangement was made between the court personnel and myself about putting a special press section outside the courthouse?
Yes, we had terrible problems with the press. When I came down here for the arraignment and at other periods, my mother was really almost trampled, and people were knocked down. You would not believe these guys. And so my understanding was that you came to an agreement with the courthouse that there would be a barrier put up and that there would be some microphones, and that if I would say a word to the press on an occasion, that would help keep things in line.
There was an absolute mob scenes outside this courthouse, wasn't there before that?
Yes, there was.
You were really concerned about your mother, weren't you, coming to and from court?
Yeah, I was concerned about yes, I was concerned about my mother. And I was also concerned about the reporters, because I saw, people got knocked down. I think I've seen a number of people get knocked down.
In fact, I think you just already told us, things got so bad that reporters were actually breaking into the home, weren't they?
Yeah, we were one reporter broke into the house and was in your room.
You were asked about dealing with the press. Has your family's name been savaged in the press in this case?
I think there's different elements of the press, like any group. And like any group, there's different elements. And I think that there's a certain part of the press which has made a lot of money on this and has made a lot of money from my family. And I think my family's had a difficult, some members of my family have had a difficult time trying to deal with this.
You were asked questions about the clock in the house. Now, just the other day, did all the electricity go out because of a hairdryer?
Yes, it did.
Is that house is not regularly occupied, is it?
Well, it's occupied, no, it's occupied for only a portion of the year, and then it's occupied by different families on a rotating basis.
When you come down here for a vacation, do you go around and fix all the clocks?
No, I do not.
Your Honor, please, there's one series of questions I'd like to approach the bench before I ask.
Okay. Members of the jury, step into the jury room, stretch your legs. Don't talk about the case in there, please.
Abby Lowell in Washington, D.C. Roy Black's on redirect. Give me once again a thumbnail sketch of how Morrill asked you. You said she struck out. I struck out completely. That would indicate this.
Wouldn't that show that she'd be not likely to have sex after that? I want to bring out unprotected sex. I'd like to bring out after this pregnancy, after losing that child, she once again became pregnant and had an abortion. I think it is now relevant because they brought in this issue that she would be much more careful after having this pregnancy and these particular problems. I want to bring out that despite after that, she obviously had sexual relations and became pregnant again and had an abortion.
And you choose to do that through this witness?
Yes.
I object to this testimony. First of all, we had a pretrial hearing on this. Mr. Black put his client on the stand about pregnancy. I cross-examined him on his testimony. The fact that this woman had an abortion is not relevant to anything that Mr. Smith has testified to. All he said was it was careless. It has nothing to do with this. It is a statutory rule of exclusion. We had a full evidentiary hearing on it. We made a ruling on it, and it is not admissible in this trial.
Let me hear the questions and answers on a proper case.
All right. Will, are you aware from the child was born and the twin died that she then again became pregnant?
Yes, I am.
And are you aware of that through the discovery materials we have in this case?
Yes, I'm aware because you informed me of that.
Are you aware that she had an abortion at that time?
Yes, I am.
It's strict and rank hearsay. It is not proper redirect of the client, and it is inadmissible.
Objection sustained on hearsay. Anything else from this witness? Surely.
Some local cable operators, for those viewers rejoining us following a local commercial break, CNN is bringing you live coverage of the William Kennedy Smith trial.
We have 2 minutes.
Well, right now, William Kennedy Smith has finished his testimony, but Roy Black said he'd like a few minutes to make some sort of an announcement. Maybe they're through with witnesses. Abby, very quickly, the overall effect of William Kennedy Smith's testimony.
The overall effect, Charles, is that William Kennedy Smith did what, if you believe his side of the story, he had to do. He looked very persuasive and honest and credible. He spoke his story without many hitches. He was internally consistent with what he said earlier within his own testimony. He presented a very believable side of the story that if the jury was so inclined, they could believe his side. Remember, again, he has no prior statements because he's the defendant, so there was not much more Lash could do to destroy his credibility, but he presented his case as straightforwardly as the alleged victim did hers. Maura Lash had a few possible avenues to attack. I don't think she did a very good job. I made a list of a couple if we get into that a little.
On Maura Lash, I think we've got time here. What didn't she do a good job?
I'll tell you where I thought she had the areas that she could have attacked, and I'm not saying it would have made the difference, but she could have started that whole concept of the different time between Patrick Kennedy's view of events and William Kennedy Smith's view. And I think she didn't do that. She started down that path, and mysteriously she stopped. She could have done a chart which would have shown that everybody has the time wrong and made an inference that it's the Kennedy side that has kind of recreated the time. She could have tried statements that Patrick Kennedy made and...
Is Officer Mary Ellen Norton, a Palm Beach town police officer. She was apparently at a club called Lulu's that night in plainclothes, working undercover. She's probably going to testify about the timeline, about who was where when, which may dispute the Kennedys' accounts. Before we go into her testimony, Abby Lowell, very quickly, if William Kennedy Smith was this effective, what can the prosecution possibly do now?
Now they're going to try to take some of the things he was most certain about and try to bring some witnesses that will attack his credibility.
How are you employed?
I'm a police
Is there
officer
any
with
chance,
Palm
do you
Beach
think,
Police
the alleged victim could come back?
How long have you
There
been
is, and it's going to take us a little bit more time to talk about later, Charles, but it would be very risky because it will make the 6th time that she's spoken under oath, and that will give Roy Black a 6th possible area that he could cross-examine her about. But they may have to do it because their case is hurting.
30 is
Well, right now, we'll go back and hear what Palm Beach police officer Mary Ellen Norton has to say about the evening she was with William Kennedy Smith at Lulu's, a club in Palm Beach. She was working as an undercover officer. Let's listen.
Yes, I was.
How were you dressed in the evening hours of March 29, 1991?
I was dressed in a white skirt, a black blouse, and a gray jacket.
Okay. Were you actually working for the town of Palm Beach Police Department as a police officer at that time?
Yes, I was.
On the evening of March 29, 1991, did you go to a bar by the name of Lulu's?
Yes, I did.
Approximately what time did you get to Lulu's?
I arrived at Lulu's at approximately 10:30.
And while you were at that location, excuse me, let me rephrase that. After you arrived at that location, did you stay there for a period of time?
Yes, I did.
Did there come a time when the defendant, William Smith, entered Lulu's bar on the evening of March 29, 1991?
Yes.
Approximately what time did the defendant arrive at that location?
It was approximately 11:30, between 11:30 and 11:45.
Do you see the defendant in the courtroom?
I didn't join them, but I was on the dance